Welcome to Generosity Experience Live. On today's episode, how can data help build authentic relationships? Featuring Matthew Barta, product manager at Neon One, and featuring Meena Das, CEO at namastedata.org. And now, here's your host, Tim Sarantonio.
Welcome to our March episode of Generosity Experience Live, a live stream show where we look at the ways that non-profiteers like you can get savvier about the ways that technology can better connect you with your community of generosity. I'm your host, Tim Sarantonio, Director of Corporate Brand at Neon One. No matter when or where you watch our show, you'll love engaging and valuable conversations to come. And we want you to be part of all of it. If you're watching live with us today, please jump into the comments now and share your thoughts with us throughout the show. We have a different giveaway for each episode. Today, one lucky live viewer is going to win a personalized Lego mosaic portrait of you or a loved one. Let's take a look at our viewer question for today, which is, what is the most important piece of data that your nonprofit tracks each month? We'll give you a moment here to answer. Let's check this out. All right. For me, obviously a lot of people are probably going to be like, oh, it's, money, right? But I think that depending on what people say or think, that there's a lot of different ways that we can go with defining even what the word important means. But I will say, folks, that this is an early way that you can get ahead of winning this prize right here by commenting. So there you go. Well, we'll give it a little bit more time, but in just a few minutes, we're going to be joined live by our special guests, Matthew Barta and Meena Das. Now, I do love my Lego sets, though. We're going to talk about Lego. That's kind of the theme this month. One of the cool things about them that we'll get into is just kind of how well thought out all the different pieces connect together. So, speaking of which, I think it's time to get into the big number. Three to five. That's the number of data systems that the typical nonprofit is using to juggle their fundraising operations, according to market research firm LEK Consulting. Now, I've been hearing this number since I joined the nonprofit technology sector over 10 years ago. And unfortunately, things have not changed. So when we talk about a data system, what exactly does that mean? In the case of revenue operations, let's use Generosity Experience Design to give us some focus here. First, you have marketing technology. That includes a website, email communications, direct mail production, and graphic design tools like Canva. Second, you have the revenue management itself, online donation forms, peer-to-peer fundraising platforms, auctions management, and of course, the constituent relationship management system, or CRM for short. Third, you have the impact and analysis side of the operations. For the sake of simplicity today, let's just flag accounting systems like Intuit QuickBooks Online as the focus for this part, and leave out things like program management. All of these things combined lead to data that is generated that pertains to a different action or insight about a person. The problem rears its head when that person starts interacting with many ways nonprofits have chosen to design their generosity experiences. Now, this is ACE, a proud member of our One Bunch. Let's pretend that ACE just heard about your nonprofit because of a video that you posted on social media. ACE likes that video and then chooses to go to your website. The website then has a form to sign up for an email list. Great. So Ace goes ahead and signs up for your monthly newsletter. That hits your third-party email newsletter software. But then the nonprofits decided to use the CRM's email program that's built in to send all their appeals and not the third-party system that captured the newsletter. So this new potential supporter, if they feel compelled enough to hit that donate now button that you've put into that appeal, is now taken to a form that is asking them to give tons of duplicate information, as well as things likely not necessary at this stage of the journey. Okay, fine. Because the nonprofits triggered something within ACE, they suffer through the terrible donation form and they go ahead and donate. But in this case, they're using the fancy forms that have all the bells and whistles. They even set up a recurring donation. That then doesn't get translated properly into the database. The donor receives solicitations to other types of revenue generating activities, all within their brand new form to fill out. Then something happens that I believe is truly driving the majority of revenue operation problems, the slow decline of relevance. The nonprofit continues to insert the person's first name into the newsletter, Dear Ace, but otherwise the updates aren't relevant. The story's too centered on how great the nonprofit is at solving their problems. But in turn, the donor continues to receive urgent appeals. The love fades, the interest recedes, and finally the person unsubscribes from the newsletter. But guess what? They continue to receive appeals and even physical letters in the mail because the data didn't transfer over. Eventually, the person just tunes things out entirely, and the original reasons have shifted into nothingness. And then that's when the nonprofit gets the dreaded, I never signed up for this list email in reply to something that's sent out. It takes a lot of work to put all these different pieces together. And the reality is that even the vast majority of nonprofits struggle with putting these basics together. That's why I feel a deep pain whenever I see somebody in a community forum ask what CRM everyone's using, besides the fact that salespeople descend on those folks like vultures around a fresh kill. They also serve zero strategic utility for the person asking it. It is automatically limiting the potential of the generosity experience by focusing so much on the CRM. The vast majority of databases on the market are basically helping manage money, not people. They prioritize affluence over affinity, with some technology even using wealth data as the primary reason someone may be generous. There has to be another way to think about these problems. I want to propose something very simple. And I want you to close your eyes and visualize your favorite Lego set, either growing up or as an adult. And this is a good opportunity. Maybe even pop that into the chat here, because I have my favorite that I'll share. But this is pretty critical for how we could start to think about the problems that I just talked about. Because if you're like me, that's actually going to be the retro Nintendo Entertainment System kit that actually has a rotating wheel to make Mario jump over the Goombas. I actually have it over in my living room above the fireplace. And sometimes I, let the kids do that, but otherwise it's a piece of art. So what about you? What do you see when you do that? What are the individual components that you can spot in your favorite kit? What are the things that when you put it together were behind the scenes that nobody would actually see, but made something pretty special happen? And did you ever have a situation where a brick was missing and you were able to quickly swap it out from another piece, from another kit. And that's the beauty of the Lego system of play. And I contend that nonprofit data management should work in a very similar fashion. Each brick is a piece of data about somebody, and those pieces eventually lock together to form the fullness of who that person is. And in turn, all that comes together to build the entirety of what you see as a finished build. Too many nonprofits are just dumping everything on the table and then not trying to figure out how everything fits together. Some of y'all are just grabbing chewing gum and trying to use that to hold things together. It should not work that way. There needs to be a native, connected elegance that streamlines these interactions, even if you don't want to use what you consider individual best of breed solutions. I implore you to remember that the donor ultimately only cares about how you are communicating and delivering on your mission, not that you've offered them the most payment options of any nonprofit around. The reality is that a technology company like Neon One should be putting together the best kit possible for you with clear instructions and ability for little touches and customizations that make it yours. The sooner we embrace that the generosity experiences all of these pieces coming together, the quicker we could shift toward designing something magical around that.
During today's episode, we are thrilled to be gifting a personalized Lego mosaic art piece. Today's winner will work with our team to turn a photo of themselves or a loved one into a customized Lego kit. Gift it to a member of your household or keep it for yourself. Comment during today's episode to be part of the giveaway contest.
Hi, Matt.
Hey, Tim. How's it going?
Oh, it's lovely. Welcome to Generosity Experience Live today.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us. And before we kind of get into, ways that data can help us build authentic and meaningful relationships, it would actually be great to introduce who you are and a bit about your journey toward Neon One.
Yeah. So thanks, Tim. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. So I'm a Minneapolis, Minnesota native living in the great western state of Oregon since about 2005 now. When I first moved here, I started a role in finance and spent about 13 years at a single company in that space, where I wore a lot of different hats, starting in operations and then moving into development as a QA engineer, Scrum Master, and then taking on PO and BA level roles temporarily for a large company initiative. And then I even did a stint in project and program management as well. Also during that time, I had a really great product management mentor where I got the itch to do something in that space and do something more holistic. So later, when I spent some time beginning my product management journey at a small startup for about 2 years, where we built some community support centered blockchain technologies, I realized that I was happiest when I was working on something that I felt connected to. So when I looked for my next role, it was really important to me that I be able to connect on a personal level with the what and the why of what we're doing, so that I could feel proud of what I was building. I have a strong connection to the servant leadership concepts that are inherent in both Scrum Master and product manager level roles. And that's when Neon One came in, where I was blessed to have Anna pick me up and take ownership of the Giving Days and Fundraise products, where I get to engage and work with awesome people such as yourself and a ton of other amazing people here. And I've been on a fire hose level of learning and of nonprofit and philanthropy space for the last 9 months.
What a ride too, and it's been
Certainly.
great to get to know you a bit more. As someone who's helping oversee, especially the evolution of our digital fundraising, part of our ecosystem. How can tech companies like ours ensure that people are put first in the process? Because it's a very digital forward channel.
That's right.
So how do you keep that connection there?
Yeah, so I'd be remiss if I didn't start this answer without pointing out the names of these sessions, which is generosity experience. This concept is rooted in what has been taught to me since I started at Neon One, and it helps explain our motivations and behaviors when it comes to giving, which guides us in designing our interfaces, interactions, platforms that align with those motivations. So our focus is on creating technology that's intuitive, easy to navigate, and visually appealing, ensuring more of a streamlined giving experience for both nonprofits and for donors. This means actively eliminating barriers to entry by making our platforms accessible to anyone, regardless of their tech savviness, and ensuring that they're engaging and effective for both sides of the giving equation. So we engage in consistent user testing and feedback gathering loops to refine and improve our user experience, making sure that our platforms not only meet but exceed those expectations of our users and hosts. This process allows us to ensure that the voices of our community then directly affect and change and shape the evolution of our platforms. So yeah, we're striving to build with community in mind, asking critical questions like, what tools can we provide to you as nonprofits to help foster a sense of belonging among your communities? Generating ideas from questions like, if you could build this product with us in a perfect world with no rules, what would that look like? Our aim is to empower nonprofits to connect the dots among their supporters, giving them the agency to actively intervene in the shape and direction of the world around them. This approach not only enhances the functionality of our platforms, but also amplifies the sense of purpose and community engagement in that digital fundraising.
I love that question in terms of like, what could it look like, right?
Right.
So, folks, this
Yep.
is a good. Guess what? You have an opportunity to start to even outline that if you want in the chat. So, and Katie,
That's right.
yes, the Lego mosaic is so cool. What I'd love to hear about is what else would be cool in digital fundraising, right? Little shoehorny, folks, I understand that, but I am on it today. So, Matt, one of the lovely things, and it's always an exciting time for spring. I even got my Easter related, get up on today. It's,
Fantastic.
you know what this also means? It's Giving Day season.
That's right.
Spring Giving Days. We even have several popping off. Arizona Gives kicks off things next week on
That's right.
April 2nd. What are you seeing in terms of the innovations that community giving days are doing to actually kind of manage the day, to build that momentum? What are you seeing as you've kind of taken over that part of our ecosystem?
Yeah, so what's really catching our eye is how giving days are becoming more of a team sport. There's a big push for collaboration, pulling in stakeholders from different sectors, thinking marketing, PR, even the youth and corporate sectors to get involved in the planning from the ground up. It's like they're kind of opening the playbook to the whole community, which is pretty exciting. So by involving the community from the outset, hosts are broadening the reach and impact of these events through diverse perspectives. We've even had a couple of recent conversations that indicate there's a possible resurgence or interest in in-person events, which we're keeping an eye on. One comment was that they were setting up giving stations or a place to give for some of their corporate sponsors. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we're seeing a greater adoption of peer-to-peer functionality as well. Seeing supporters use their own networks to boost their favorite causes is awesome. It's not just about donating, it's about multiplying impact, lending social proof, and honestly, it's about making giving a lot more personal and powerful. This is a big motivator in some of our efforts to bolster our own corporate engagement and subsequent employee peer-to-peer giving that impact can have, and then, of course, the extended donor base reach that comes with those collaborations. Here at Neon One, we're also doubling down on tech that engages and mobilizes. Think leaderboards, challenge matches, and even volunteer hours as a front and center item in the leaderboard to what's been donated. Stuff that makes Giving Days more like, community-wide rallies. And since everyone's glued to their phones, making everything mobile friendly for the donor on the go is a must-have. So yeah, it's about getting more hands on deck, using tech smartly, and making every supporter feel like they're a part of something big.
I've loved even seeing the kind of the pledged hours for volunteer days just tick up, right? Like it's one of the coolest.
Yeah.
Well, and it started to my exposure to giving days, and then, I got to keep my eye on the time, Chris, I know. And so, but my exposure has always been really excited to see, like, giving days taught me what community driven growth could look like. And that's because it had always, the best ones really always approached it with, it's not the money that we're trying to raise, it's that we're building this larger vision. So final question for you today, Matt, and then
Yes.
you are released.
Thank you.
What do you see is the most people-centric way that a nonprofit can optimize their digital fundraising?
Yeah, so when it comes to optimizing digital fundraising in a way that truly centers on people, it's all about deepening those donor relationships and making every interaction feel personal. It starts with really tuning in to the donor preferences. I mean, it's about listening, truly listening, and then acting on what you hear. Segmenting, targeting, personalization, those aren't just buzzwords. They're tools that tailor each touch point, making each supporter feel like they're the only one in the room. So building relationships is key. It's about saying a heartfelt thank you and keeping supporters in the loop on how their donations are making waves. But the real kicker is that we need to meet people exactly where they are, whether they're scrolling through their phones, checking their email, or hanging out on social media. We want to make it easy and seamless for them to step into the mission. Giving supporters the tools to be champions for their cause through peer-to-peer engagement, sharing their stories, and showing the ripple effect of their contributions. This is what turns a one-time donor into a lifelong advocate. So yeah, it's really about those connections, making every interaction count, and creating those easy pathways for engagement.
I mean, Matt, there's so many different things that we could talk about on this topic, but that is all that we have for you for today. So I want to
thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for joining. I'm going to be honest, folks. Matt, like, can be camera shy sometimes. When it comes
It's very true. Yep.
We've talked through this, so I am so grateful that you are joining us and telling your story, because it's so important, because of the conversations that we're having with some really amazing, impactful community-driven organizations. So I'm really grateful that you joined us today.
Feel proud to be a part of it. Thank you, Tim.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Why should nonprofits focus on recurring giving? Join us on Thursday, April 25th for episode 4 of Generosity Experience Live, featuring Eric Ressler of Cosmic and Abby Jarvis of Neon One. RSVP now on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube to be reminded as showtime approaches. During today's episode, we are thrilled to be gifting a personalized Lego mosaic art piece. Today's winner will work with our team to turn a photo of themselves or a loved one into a customized Lego kit. Gift it to a member of your household or keep it for yourself. Comment during today's episode to be part of the giveaway contest.
Hello, me. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm just coming back from my annual India trip, so slightly jet lagged, but I'm here.
Is this a popular time for that trip? Because my neighbors also just went on an India trip.
I mean, the ticket prices and wars and inflation, and we can blame it on economy, all the big words. We can blame on it.
All the big words. All the big words. Well, yeah. I am so happy that you were back here for this.
Me too.
For folks who may not know who you are, can you talk a bit about who you are in your journey to the nonprofit sector?
Okay, so I grew up in the beautiful country, India, and moved to States and Canada. Right now, I'm speaking from Vancouver, BC, Canada side. I've lived in the States. I moved about 7 years ago, and I typically give 3 points from my story. It's pretty long. I'm not going to walk through the timeline. We can go through a coffee for that. But 3 points from my story. I started working after my first master's program back when I was 21. And I started working in the tech space, and I've spent many years in the tech space. And then I moved to nonprofit. I moved to nonprofits for different reasons, because I no longer wanted to work in the tech. And one of the things that I realized while working in the tech, I used to design dashboards, metrics, talk to Excel spreadsheets day in and out. Something that I realized was the products that we create out of technology, through the data, people meet on those products to the institution's values. And so eventually it became really important for me to ask the question, what does it mean for someone like me to come up on data? What does it mean for someone like me who talks like me to come up on an Excel spreadsheet that's in front of you? And I think that became part of my story as I went into the nonprofit industry to figure out this role. What does philanthropy, and I'm going to use the word generosity, when it intersects with the word data, when it intersects with the word intention, when it intersects with the word, equity and inclusion, what does it mean? So that's what my journey is into the nonprofit industry.
I mean, and it's quite I love not just that story, but some of the things that you've been doing, especially on the forefront of people and specifically equity-driven surveys. This is something that you're known for. Like, folks, go to Namaste Data. There's a rich amount of resources that Meena has there. Why is this, why that? Why is that also so important as well?
I'll give an example. I love this example, so I'm going to give this one.
Yeah.
Imagine you are taking a bus somewhere to a place which is 4 hours away from here, okay? You are just driving, you're going by yourself, you have a stranger sitting next to you who looks interesting, and you think you can talk to this person and probably introduce them to your work, to your mission, right? You work in the nonprofit. Now, you start talking to them, we do the small talk, it's the weather, where you're coming from, where you're joining from. And eventually, at some point, you get into this mode where you start asking questions. And you start asking questions, tell me about your name, and then you start, okay, and then while I have you, what's your gender identity? And what's your ethnicity? And while I have you, can I also know, would you be interested to donate to my mission where I work here?
I see where you're going.
Imagine the reaction, the horror on the face you would get from this stranger. You're not giving context. You're not setting up any backstory. You are not giving your why. You're straight asking questions. I've seen this happen again and again in different surveys. We have good intentions, but it doesn't come across without that intentionality coming up in the context of a people-centric survey, coming up in the language, coming up in the actions that we intend to take out of the survey. They're all missing. And without these missing pieces, what we are risking is trust, just basic trust, and losing people. We are making somebody feel alienated, excluded, just, appalled at the piece that you are asking them some of the most personal identity questions without setting up any context. This is what we risk, and this is why I like doing the work that I do.
I mean, and there's so much to just unpack on that alone, with power dynamics around how the data is getting used, who's accessing the data, things of that nature. Especially because the vast majority of nonprofits out there, they're small, to mid-sized organizations, maybe at most $5 million in U.S. dollar revenue, but the Canadian size breakdown is very similar, actually.
Yeah.
And you've worked with a lot of different folks. What have you found is the biggest obstacles that the nonprofit leaders that you're talking to struggle with when it comes to equity-centered data management?
I have to say that, well, I see a lot of different challenges. I'm trying to think the biggest one. I think the one that's most common, one where we can make most impact, is that we forget that the data points that we are working with, they are about humans. We are so interested in collecting more. We are so interested in creating one more measure, one more metric, one more dashboard, something that's going to just make us magically effective and efficient overnight. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't happen that way. We forget that the data points in front of us on the Excel spreadsheet, they are humans. They are about people. There is somebody with a story who is probably not fitting every checkbox that we have in front of us in our systems, in our CRMs, in our forms and surveys, and that story is probably not going to be collected. And I think that's the biggest challenge. We forget that part. And we straight go into operationalizing things. We straight go into what systems we need, what technology do we need, how do we make sure that we are capturing everything in a form that can be turned into automated way to a dashboard. And, I come from this world where I designed those systems, and it hurts my brain and my heart to see that, yes, we are capable of creating those beautiful systems, but we are missing out on the stories. Doesn't mean that we have to throw out the systems. It means we have to do better, and we can do better in connecting those beautiful systems and this intentionality that the stories cannot go unseen, unheard, lost. We can't have that happen.
There was, I wish I had had the foresight to grab the graphic that I'm about to reference for our producer. So I'm going to visualize it with words, folks, which is that there's this workshop that I did. There's this great graphic that's been floating around, and I did post it. And it's been posted every so often about Legos and data, and it's 5 stages. Yeah, it's a good one. I didn't come up with it. T. Clay Buck, I think, has posted this a bunch of times, and data storytelling, when the Lego kit is finished, the house is built, is the last step out of 5. But you have to start with even like how you're collecting the data and then organizing it and then going from there. And then you can visualize it. And then you can kind of put it together. So especially for a smaller organization, where do they even, well, look at that. Look at that. See, this is why we pay Chris the big bucks, folks. Take a look at this, right? Let's pop that, Chris, pop that back up again, because I want to, folks, you have a Lego kit on the line here, and we need some comments to talk about this. I want to hear like where you're struggling with when it comes to even one of these 5 stages, right? Like, is it the collection that is causing you problems, the data preparation? And Meena, maybe we can use this as a framing device for the next question I'll ask you, which is, of those 5 stages, let's even go with number 1.
Mm-hmm.
How can somebody start with that?
When Chris pulled up the image, I was trying to think, what do we need from going to point number 1 to point number 5? It's not so much, and I'm going to say it's not so much about the methodology. It's not so much how somebody's going to do, one piece about other piece, or it's not so much about the instructions. I think it's more about imagination. If we can imagine point number 5, if we can envision what does that final product looks like, we are always going to be trying to fulfill someone else's instructions. In this case, given to us, do this, given to us, do that. So I think if we are on step 1, and to your question, what can nonprofits do if they're on the step 1? Start envisioning, start imagining, start dreaming. What does that look like when we are connecting with people? And let's backtrack that into our system. Let's backtrack that into our data, as opposed to thinking we need these 4 things and then we can go do our job and then connect. No, you can do that already, and then let's backtrack that to bring it back to the systems and the data. So I think the first step to the 5th step, we need more dreaming, more imagination.
Let's take a look at this. Katie, you're our VIP today, by the way. No spoilers yet, but in the lead. Having managers unwilling or able to learn the databases to enter the data they know. Oh, that's a good one. I love shadow databases. I love talking about shadow databases too, which is their own weird version of it. They forget that they will leave one day and that they're the only ones who know that relationship with any particular donor or community partner. Meena, we do have some time, and I got a fun question about AI, of course.
Yes.
But let's reflect on Katie's. We have some time to reflect on what Katie said. What do you think about that when you read that?
Well, I've seen this again and again. In every nonprofit story, there is a person like that, right? Who's unwilling to learn, who's saying, why do I have to do that? Bring back the old system. Why did we have to do this? And there's that whole piece of this almost emotional therapy that we need in the picture. to go through that. I would say what I typically tend, what I have learned from my experiences, my client projects, my personal jobs, is there has to be a piece where the whole team collects together, connects together, and learn. In every single job, in every single client conversation, I have made sure that we have that one Thursday lunch hour where you would talk about something like this, a habit that we are unwilling to change, or a piece about data that we have missed and skipped and are just going straight to the new feature on the CRM or the new AI tool that's in the market. Those lunches and learn sessions, again, this is coming from my experience. Those take us back to the fundamentals. Those lunch and learns are used for you to take your entire team, time travel, go back to the basics. And you are talking to them why we are doing what we are doing and why it is important to build some redundancy, especially in cases when they leave, that we are able to hand over each other and with the same trust, with the same care. And we are building that foundation together when we are getting into these new systems, talking about new data points.
I love the call out. One, Aidan's quote here is another great one about that call for imagination, and maybe we can even use that to help queue up my final question for you. But the data committee, the data committee, the data review committee, the data discussion committee, what an underutilized resource. Of all the committees, I know everybody's committed out. There's a big difference between yet another event planning committee and something like this. And if you approach it like the way that you just talked about, Meena, and add that imagination like Aidan, wow, what a cool thing. That's a great takeaway for today's call. Final question for you. We're coming up to the first year of the fundraising AI framework being out in the world, folks. If you haven't checked it out, fundraising.ai, that's the website too.
So hard to believe. 1 year.
I know, and we get to actually meet for the first time in person, and there'll be a gathering at AFP Icon for that initiative. If you don't know, it's a responsible and beneficial net framework on how to think about and utilize AI. So for the skeptics who might be out there, because it's not all tech bros, folks, this is a bigger, wider, lovely world. For anybody who's watching who thinks that like this, the line that we always hear is this is inevitable, you just have to get on board. That's not how I think we should be framing this. So how can we talk to skeptics about artificial intelligence in the nonprofit sector without using that track of if you don't adopt this, you're going to get left behind? Because I do not think that is the way to frame this.
Okay, so that train, that AI train where somebody might be on that train and someone would say, oh, just get on this, hop on this, and this train, you're going to lose catching that train. Well, if anybody listening to this or, listening later to this episode thinks that train they're going to lose that train, well, I'm going to tell you as a person who has worked with AI for a long time, that train is going to come back. That train comes back every single day. You are never going to lose that train. Trust me. There is always going to be a chance for you to jump on that train and learn something new. I'm that kind of a person who's always going to say, don't start with your strengths-based approach. Start from a place of happiness. Start from a place of joy. So start from a place of understanding what can this technology do for you. You are not scaling. You're not just scaling things. You're not just scaling your to-do list and putting it into a magical system called AI so that it can just do something for you. No, execution is still on you. You are still the person who's going to be responsible for things. You're still going to be the person who has to own these pieces. The question really is, where are we trying to use AI and why? And for that, you have to try a little bit. Yes, you have to form your experiences, and then you have to come to terms with what are you trying to scale? What are you using AI? I have heard one notion a lot is you get to scale things. Yes, we get to scale things, but what are we scaling? Are we scaling the gaps that we have in our overburdened to-do lists with AI, or are we trying to build the, scale some of our, manage some of the gaps of systemic inequities through AI? You are going to get into some hard questions as you go deeper into AI, and start with one step at a time, and eventually you are going to figure out, which station you want to get down for if you take the AI train. You are never losing anything if you're not implementing 5 AI solutions in your nonprofit just today. You are not losing anything. What you are losing, though, is a chance of curiosity. Try something. You might figure out something that you can implement, and then you are going to go from there to figure out, okay, what am I trying to do with this technology? Am I going to scale something? Am I going to change something, transform something? It's pretty amazing when we start from a place of joy. So I'm going to leave it at that.
I think that's a lovely place to lead it. And you know what? I think it's actually time for some joy right now, actually. So earlier this week, I had a workshop on CRM frameworks. In fact, I debuted a promised resource, Mina, on LinkedIn, a 39-page policies and procedures manual written with joy and a touch of AI, I should add. So I'm not sitting there doing all of that. So one of the registrants from that workshop I'm going to announce now, but Mina, as I'm getting that queued up, let's figure out who else is going to get it.
Okay.
So we'll choose somebody, one of the comments from today, that will be who we can announce that. You can just, dealer's choice. So for the workshop, we're going to reach out to, and if you're watching now, Karen Cutliff of Legal Aid of Western Missouri. That's who is going to be our workshop winner for our mosaic. So Karen, we have a way that you can reach out if you're watching now. Great. Otherwise, we got you. Mina, what about for today's live viewer? Who's the lucky duck?
Can I pick Katie? I love the first comment. Lego mosaic is so cool. Can I pick that one?
I think that's it. Katie, congratulations. Just out of the gate, you're just setting that joy, setting that happy comment right there, right? So we'll be in touch. Chris Strub will you can email our producer. But awesome. Well, Mina, I know I could talk to you forever, and luckily I get to see you in person soon. So any final words before we sign off for today?
No, thank you so much for doing this, Tim. I mean, I'm so grateful I'm part of this episode, but yours is one of those things when, even if this is my lunch hour, so I would probably be around fridge watching yours and also eating. So I love this show. So please keep doing what you're doing. And thank you for making me part of it today.
Well, thank you for being part of it and part of the larger nonprofit ecosystem here. You bring me joy. So thank you.
Grateful. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, folks. That's it for today. Again, it's a snappy, not even 45 minutes today. So I am thrilled, and we will see you next month with our focus on recurring giving. Spoiler, we're going to talk about this. I'll see you in April.
Why should nonprofits focus on recurring giving? Join us on Thursday, April 25th for episode 4 of Generosity Experience Live, featuring Eric Ressler of Cosmic and Abby Jarvis of Neon One. RSVP now on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube to be reminded as showtime approaches.
Thanks for watching Neon One on YouTube. Subscribe to keep up with all our upcoming videos, and check out another video right here.